My name is Becky Simpson. I'm one of the newest volunteers with Real Progressives. I actually videoed this like a couple days ago, but I'm going to go ahead and redo it. So if you don't know me, again, my name is Becky Simpson. I'm 29 years old. I'm a mother of one, stay-at-home mom. I am a college graduate from Ashford University. I graduated last year with a degree in complementary and alternative health. I am a writer. I've been published a couple times, in my youth, but I'm currently working on a novel called Blood on Holy Water, a fantasy fiction story. And the most important part about me, though, that also ties into this video is that I am a domestic abuse survivor. So when I was, I'm going to say around 22, 23, I met and soon got engaged and married to someone that would be a major part of my life for more than one reason. One, because he was the father of my child, and also because he was the one that actually abused me. So domestic violence is actually something that touches a good number of us. According to the World Health Organization, out of 3 women are currently in a domestic violence situation, have been in one, or basically has had that in their history. So 1 in 3 women deal with that. It's good to say that, the majority of people that we know either are dealing with or have dealt with abuse in the past. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this video is because I actually had that revelation not too long ago from a woman that is a Facebook friend of mine, and basically was the inspiration for my recovery, my personal recovery from my abuse. And I was like, she's so strong. I want to be like her. Let me make myself as strong as her, because she's so, she just has it together. She's got, her husband and her child, and they're living happily, and she just has it together. Then I come to find out recently that that it wasn't roses, like we often see in social media, that things aren't what they see online. And I actually found her stronger after she released her witness statement. So I'm gonna see if I can post this on my personal page after it's uploaded to Real Progressives. And girl, you know who you are. I love you. And any of my women that have been involved in abuse relationships, including you, I love you. You are so strong, and I love you even more for it. So I guess to touch on a little bit more of my story, my abuser basically left me in a homeless shelter when my daughter was almost 2 years old. And it was the day before our first wedding anniversary. And I had hurt my ankle at the time. And I had to basically try and scramble to live in, to find some way to live. I actually got whisked out of there with my parents' help, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And not long after that, I found out that I have multiple sclerosis. And if you can look, I have a handicap bar on my bed. I have a cane over here. Let's see if I can grab it. I use this every day. So it's not a joke. I walk like I have CP, cerebral palsy, which is fine. I'm fine with that. I'd rather walk with CP than not walk at all. So either way, it is my hope that in this video and the videos that I hope to make in the future, that I break down the progressive mindset as far as applying progressive policies to these issues. But overall, first, what I'm going to do is talk about the basics of domestic violence, like what the typical abuser is and the typical victim. And specifically with the abuser, I'm going to elaborate on the abuser because not many people really go in depth in talking about the abuser. And when I'm talking about this, I'm actually going in depth with information that I pulled from a TED Talk from Dr. Dina McMillan, and she actually has a master's and a PhD in social psychology. When she did her research about domestic abuse, she was actually working in a domestic abuse program, and the abusers, with no threat of personal accountability, they opened up to her. And I hope that using, bringing her information to light will help other progressives see what impact that can make on impressionable and vulnerable women. So I'm going to be editing this video myself, so if you see cutaways or anything like that, it's because I'm stalling and looking at my notes. So, alright, let's get going. Before I get started, I want to outline just a few preliminary things. I'm going to mostly talk about, monogamous, so one partner, heterosexual, like straight, and cisgender, i.e. born male, born female relationships. I'm not going to be going into platonic abuse. I'm not going to be going into family abuse, like with children, siblings, or anything like that. And I'm not going to be going into LGBTQIA relationships, because these different types of issues need to have their own explanation, because right now I don't think I'd be able to do them enough justice, because there are some specific and unique situations that would happen in those scenarios. So I hope that I'm not offending anyone by not going into those, but that's why. One thing that Dr. McMillan mentioned in her TED Talk, which actually caught me off guard, was that the abusers often said or showed in some way that they knew that the relationship was not right. They knew that it was twisted. They knew that it was unfair to their partner, but there was no empathy. There was no, no personal accountability, nothing like that. They thought that it was normal for the most part, because the victim was their property. The victim had no right to go against them, because they are supposed to do what the abuser says. So, and that speaks to me some sort of amount of sociopathy. And when you speak of sociopathy, you're thinking about being a sociopath, any of these terms, sociopath, antisocial, or psychopath. And when I think about sociopaths, they have no emotion, and they don't know, like there's no knowledge or grasp of emotions, and they use the human emotion that they see outwardly to their advantage and can basically copy and fake it till they make it. Psychopaths, they have an altered view of reality, and they use that, they are seeing things from a different perspective and seeing reality in a different way. And because of that, they have no empathy when they do their actions, because they're seeing it as their reality. So, I'm not an expert in psychology, but that's just from my years and years of studying it. I'm not an expert at all, though, but that's just one of my interests. So another aspect of abusers Dr. McMillan, trying to be respectful, that Dr. McMillan discovered was that they genuinely seek out genuine companionship. So when they reach somebody, they're reaching someone who's actually a really good partner, and would be a really good partner to them if they were actually good partners themselves. But the reason why this is because they don't want to be single. They are serial daters. They are often non-monogamous. And I actually saw that in my partner, because he was actually trying to cheat on me while I was pregnant. And that often happens. Like, relationship times will overlap, or they'll often, like, even if the relationship, goes astray elsewhere, they'll immediately find another partner. Again, I saw that in my abuser as well. When they are asked about, their ability to lie, ability to manipulate, they're actually very proud of it, because it's a skill, just like woodworking, sewing. that it's a skill. It's a skill that they're able to garner themselves. And I mean, I would be happy if I could lie like that. The shift of emotion to actually show emotion only happens when the victim or somebody in authority is there, because they don't want to have anyone questioning the facade that they're putting on, I guess. When we talk about the victim, what really keeps women under siege is basically the social construct of not being too picky, too abrasive or anything like that, basically being easygoing and all that stuff. And when we are talking about beauty standards, things like that, there is a big giant stigma that keeps women thinking that they're not good enough. So when they attract someone that seems to be basically the perfect partner for them, they are not going to be trying to eliminate that, especially if they have low self-esteem. I definitely had low self-esteem at the time. So when we look at the abuse itself, like the relationship, the foundation within that is being able to emotionally abuse them, basically wear them down, and something Dr. McMillan called coercive control. I'm actually going to go with her direct words to define this term. Coercive control is living under a suffocating system where someone else controls every aspect of your life. What you do, what you say, what you eat, how you dress, where and how you live, whether you you get an education or have a job, how you spend your money, how many children you have, and how you interact with them. Your relationships are monitored with your own family, and you can't have relationships at all unless that person controlling you gives you permission. So a domestic violence victim can really be in any sort of demographic, and you're gonna have to forgive the noise in the background. My boyfriend's playing on his game, and the walls are really thin. The common theme is not necessarily the victim, because if it's 1 in 3 women throughout the whole of the United States, it's going to be different demographics, different religions, whatever, what have you, in different age groups. So when the signs come up relatively early, that you see some sort of psychosis of the partner, and you're like, oh, something's wrong, then instantly in your head you think something, you want to maybe back off from that person. Maybe we need to take a break. And then you might even, especially if you live in a traditional culture such as being Muslim, Asian American, or even just, like a really traditional household in the black community, or a really traditional community in Jewish community, whoever, what have you. They'll be saying things like that you're being too picky, that you're, that they were actually taken in by that person's spell and saying, well, maybe he just deserves another chance. And the victim actually wants to believe it's their fault, because it's a lot easier to change themselves than to change another person, especially if they were taken up in some way by mainstream media culture of that you constantly have to be approving, like, or your society has to approve of what you look like, what you do, what you, and all, and basically you have no voice for yourself. When you're already being taken in like that, it's going to be really easy for you to be taken in into an abusive situation. And like I said, with traditional families, they even go as far to say, and I've seen this in multiple cultures, in some way have some sort of motto or expression of, we don't want to air the dirty laundry. I actually when I was doing my research for this topic, there's a Chinese, I think it's Mandarin, I don't know if it's Cantonese, but it might be in both. But there's an expression basically literally saying, we don't want to air our dirty laundry. I don't know how to say it, and I'm not about to frickin' butcher it. So, but I found that really interesting, because I know that in black culture, they definitely say that. Another thing that makes victims basically created really easily, or people are able to become victims very easily, is because no one really teaches what a real loving and healthy relationship looks like. I'm hoping that I'm able to teach that to my daughter, but unfortunately when she was younger, she did see, when she was a baby, she was witnessing what happened, and unfortunately that's not rare. When in a abusive relationship, that does happen. But now, of course, I'm in a healthy relationship, so I'm hoping that's the case. Another thing that, in my opinion, keeps people down are the stigma of she did wrong too, and the victim shaming. That happens a lot as well, especially with all these sexual assault cases coming up. The first hint of that we saw was when Bill Cosby was again brought into the fold to be accused of sexual assault from attacks that happened decades ago. And we, as Black people, we wanted to believe that he was not guilty, because dude had been racially profiled when trying to purchase these TV networks, and he's of course the picture of being the what we want in a Black father, because of the Cosby Show. We don't want to then find out that this guy that we're holding up on this pedestal is a sexual assault, that he's done repeated instances of sexual assault. We don't want to believe that. And that's again what happens with domestic violence cases. There's legal punishment that can happen because of a result of the abuse, basically, that happens to them. And if the victim doesn't have enough support, she can be legally penalized for something like not showing up to court. There was actually recently a court judge that penalized a female for not showing up to court. She was basically on her own trying to raise a 1-year-old after she had left her abuser, and she was trying to work, jobs. What I'm trying to basically say with all of this is that the progressive agenda is that we are able to build our society up, and we cannot do that while oppressing the most vulnerable of our society. And right now, we got to think about the people at the lowest part of the totem pole. And these people have to deal with these issues because the law has not caught up to the majority of domestic assault issues and problems. Not only, and this is not only to the victim, this is to the abuser as well, because mental health is not being taken as seriously as it's supposed to. We're seeing right now with all of these shootings that it's being attributed to mental health, and nothing further is being done to assist with mental health issues. We as real progressives, we push the letter of modern monetary theory, and in my last video I did actually push that also, but my goal is not just to push modern monetary theory. It is very important, but I'm also trying to get people to understand that the dichotomy of our political system right now, basically you're either red or blue, and if you're anything else, you're basically like, go away, or we're pressured to be something within those categories. And it's not really healthy for our society to continue to stay within those borders, because it doesn't leave any sort of growth. It leaves us to stay in these two boxes, not coming together at all. It's just two separate boxes sitting away from each other instead of coming together and working on these issues. When we talk about modern monetary theory, it's actually addressing something that has actually been a big, bold-faced lie that has been promoted within the mainstream media, within our politicians and our political climate, and making from the top rung to the bottom rung basically shaking in our boots about the poor taxpayer. Because of the lie concerning things such as the federal taxes being directly paying to federal spending and nothing more, it's actually putting more strain. Because when you think about it, if the mainstream media is peddling the lie that the U.S. is going broke, and you've got a child, and you want them to have what you didn't have, as far as being able to retire or being able to go on Social Security because you have a chronic illness or because you have a dependent that needs to go on Social Security or whatever, what have you, because you need that extra support from your government and you don't believe that you'll be able to get it, and you definitely don't believe that your children are going to get it. That's putting more weight on your back, and it will cause you to be more dependent on that person that is either wanting you to die, like wanting you to take your own life, basically eventually, in one way or another, or wanting to take your life themselves, directly or indirectly. And that's not okay. We don't need to be driving these victims into their abusers' arms and to basically see them as their only way to financial or emotional stability. That's not the way that we need to be treating our victims. We need to be treating our victims like they can get out, they can tell their stories, and we will support them as the federal, state, and local governments. Another reason why peddling the lie of basically our currency being anything but sovereign is that state and local organizations that depend on federal funding are not able to get it. They're not able to get grants because it's not basically approved. We should be able to fund these programs. That's like domestic violence shelters. We should be able to be giving women to be able to give victims what they need, because more than likely that victim has a child or that victim has some sort of dependent that depends on them for support going forward. And if they don't, we need to make sure that these victims are able to survive so they can contribute to the economy, because our labor and our ability to provide the U.S. with goods and services is why the U.S. has such a high value today. And we want to be able to build that up, so we need to be able to support our own populations in these issues of health and also nutrition, because nutrition is also a big part of it. Because if you don't think that you are allowed to eat, certain things, you'll starve yourself. And I did. So, to any and all victims of domestic abuse, whether you be the direct victim or the actual one that took your anger from your past and with yourself on someone else, I ask you, I urge you immensely to please go and seek help. Yeah, you guys, this is my first, I guess, hopefully official video with the Real Progressives. I hope to make many more concerning the health and nutrition areas of our progressive policies. And I hope that we can really make a big mark in this area, and of course many more. You guys have a great day, and thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye.